Today, I would like to share a study that my co-authors and I worked on. It's on how people interact with multiple media characters. Most of us likely spend more time in artificial interactions than we spend in actual social interactions. Between dreams, imagined interactions, and media, we apportion a considerable amount of time to imagining ourselves interacting with other people and observing the interactions of people who exist only in our imagination. Many imagined people are representations of real people we know. Some people are completely fictitious, and others are people who exist in the real world, though we have likely never interacted with them. Many mass communication studies in the area of entertainment have supported the idea that audience members interact with media characters. Among these studies, considerable research has focused on a very media character or one main protagonist with whom the audience members interact in their media experience. However, most narratives have multiple characters who enter and exit as the story unfolds. As this occurs, audience members switch their focus between characters, follow developing plots, and ultimately follow the goals of multiple characters throughout a narrative. Horton and Strauss used the term vicarious interaction to describe this process, whereby audience members follow and interact with various characters during television viewing. Although Horton and Strauss considered vicarious interaction to be the most common form of interactions for audience members, little research has been conducted to explore this type of audience interaction during television viewing. This study examines vicarious interaction with multiple characters and explores how different levels of interaction with multiple characters relate to the media experiences of audience members. By using Twitter as a modified thought listing technique, we can observe in real time how audience members switch focus between multiple characters while they engage with television dramas in their home. The idea that our media use involves simultaneously following and understanding multiple characters has been acknowledged for many years. Horton and Strauss found that audience members often assume the rules of various characters alternately and reciprocally, which they term vicarious interaction. And they found that this type of interaction is the most likely form of interaction for many program genres. As Horton and Strauss noted, vicarious interaction is unlike our everyday face-to-face interaction, such that an audience member does not have control over the interactions of media characters, and the audience member is only a spectator who is able to follow the interactions of others while not himself overly taking part. Vicarious interaction is also different from parasocial interaction, which occurs when an audience member perceives an illusory interpersonal interaction with a media figure who has directly addressed the audience. Ellis and colleagues argue that vicarious interaction closely resembles one's memory of a past concrete experience and is analog to our everyday imagined interactions. Despite early acknowledgement of vicarious interaction, current communication research predominantly measures audience members' interactions with a single character, typically their favorite character. Among the few studies that examine audience interactions with more than one character within a single narrative, Hyun and Hofner explored audience members' involvement with different characters, such as liked, disliked, and neutral characters from a TV drama. They found that participants interacted with media characters differently according to their liking of the characters. The limited empirical investigation into vicarious interaction leaves us with little knowledge regarding how audience members shift their focus among various elements, such as the plots and characters, when processing a narrative, and how vicarious interaction with multiple characters might be associated with audience members' viewing experiences. A branch of research in narrative comprehension suggests that we engage with narratives by using situation models that provide us with a mental representation in which multiple characters enter and exit dynamically as the plot unfolds. According to this line of research, audience members monitor characters' goals and intentions and follow multiple characters' presence within the narrative. The research on narrative comprehension suggests that readers build situation models that track the information regarding characters, locations, time, emotions, motivations, objects, actions, and causality that relates to the imagined world and the persons they're in. From this perspective of understanding narratives as a process, comprehension is regarded as the construction of a comprehensive and dynamic situation model. Successful construction of the model is influenced by our ability to discriminate between relevant and irrelevant details in a story, that is, by paying attention to the narrative when it matters. When an audience member is focusing on one character within a narrative, many aspects of the characters are available within working memory, including physical characteristics, knowledge, motivations, and goals. A number of events or conditions can cause the audience members to refocus his or her attention on another aspect of the situation, such as a change of the scene, the entry of another character, or the passage of narrative time. Garrett and Sanford suggest that readers keep characters or objects currently introduced in the narrative in explicit focus, which is held with limited capacity in working memory. Only limited information is accessible for processing, and the attentional focus shifts over time as the narratives unfolds. So, our comprehension of the narrative is grounded in continuous oscillation among characters and situations that involve multiple motivations, goals, actions, times, and spatial locations. Audience members revise their knowledge of characters and many other aspects of the situation models as the narrative progresses. Tracking this oscillation of characters and their goals and intentions as they move into and out of focus is fundamental to building a coherent situation model. Among the factors that influence situation model construction, the character dimension is considered one of the most influential and dominant factors of situation models in narrative comprehension. Swan and Radvansky noted that characters form the meat of situation models, which supports the importance of the character dimension in structuring situation model. Research has also found that characters are monitored more carefully than other dimensions when processing narrative events, and shifts in the narrative dimension cause the most disruptive effects in narrative comprehension. Research has shown that audience members can follow and shift focus between multiple characters' goals and motivations during their media experiences. Magliano and colleagues found the evidence that when watching a commercial film, both the protagonist and antagonist goals were carefully monitored by audience members. Later, Null and colleagues found that people store information regarding multiple characters in their working memory, and that the relevant information was activated when their attention shifted to a reintroduced character during narrative events. This process of switching and allocating attention between multiple characters ensures comprehensive situation model construction and maintains coherent narrative stories. The above research indicates that we do not place ourselves in one character's shoes, but in all of the characters' shoes, and we move among them to build an understanding of the situation dynamics and to update our model as required. The present study proposes that audience members construct a more elaborate and dynamic situation model by updating information obtained about a variety of characters. This process is crucial to narrative comprehension and will presumably have significant effects on the cognitive and emotional aspects of media experiences. Constructing an elaborate situation model requires audience members to frequently monitor and update incoming information concerning various characters. We expect that audience members who frequently update information about various characters will likely observe possible connections between multiple characters and discover information cues that link to the transition of the story plot. Research has shown that people ask questions when there are discrepancies between the reader's mental model and the information provided by the text. Asking questions help readers to focus more on the important aspects of the text, monitor their comprehension of the text, and further increase their understanding of the text. Questioning represents a metacognition process that improves text comprehension. So, audience who monitor narrative details may generate more elaborate inferences about plot development. As the story unfolds, we will expect that audience members who think about a greater diversity of characters will be motivated to ask more questions as they monitor and notice inconsistent information about the characters. So, we propose the following hypothesis. Audience members who think about a greater diversity of characters will generate more questions about the plot and future development than audience members who think about a lesser diversity of characters. In addition to asking questions about the past or current events in narratives, readers commonly predict that what will occur in the future when monitoring characters' motivations, goals, and actions. Predictive inferences improve the development of situation models and comprehension by helping readers obtain information cues that are not explicitly presented in the narratives. Movie makers apply certain techniques to encourage viewers to generate predictions to increase narrative engagement. Prediction making is often based on what readers are monitoring in the narratives, and when readers observe detailed information, such as facial expressions or conversational cues between characters, they can predict future events more precisely. Because most narratives feature more than one character, monitoring a greater diversity of characters should provide richer information regarding the plots and events in the narrative, which will lead to more accurate predictions and better comprehension. On the other hand, audience members who follow fewer characters may not be aware of informational clues already provided by the narratives, so they may generate imprecise predictions based on incomplete or insufficient information. So, we propose the following hypothesis that explores this relationship. Audience members who think about a greater diversity of characters will predict plot events more accurately than audience members who think about a lesser diversity of characters. Studies have demonstrated that prediction accuracy is related to narrative comprehension and engagement. Audience members may feel suspense when anticipating future plot lines, and audience members acquire a sense of satisfaction when their predictions is accurate. Accurate prediction also indicate that audience members monitor the information that forms the mental representation of the narrative world that is causally consistent with the progression of the events. Bustle and Balanstic suggest that after constructing a frequently updated and dynamic situation model, audience members will comprehend narrative text better and be engaged in narratives as they feel a flow-like experience by placing themselves inside the narrative world. So, we expect that accurate plot prediction indicates that audience members form mental models that are consistent with the narrative progression. Audience members will be more engaged in the narrative world if their mental representation better reflects the narrative world. So, we propose the following hypothesis. Audience members who predict future plots more accurately will have a higher level of narrative engagement than audience members who have lower prediction accuracy. The story of situation models posit that readers or audience members apply their personal experiences to help construct situation models and to understand the motives or goals of the characters, locations, objects, and events in the narrative. The activation of autobiographical memory or episodic memory helps people incorporate the incoming information in narratives and facilitates the construction of a more elaborate situation model. Research shows that individuals reflect on their memories and emotions as they engage with a story and construct a situation model. Holland, for example, asserted that individuals use narrative content to recreate their own characteristic psychological processes, and that researchers consider what the audience member brings to the story, such as their personality and life experience. Similarly, Newbaum and Otley emphasize that narrative forms clarify a spectator's emotional experience through self-reflection. McDonald and colleagues found that self-related thoughts commonly occurs during media consumption, particularly during highly engaged media use. The self-referencing that occurs suggests that narrative engagement may be characterized by a frequent and rapid oscillation between the narrative and the real world. Otley proposed that the audience alternate among the first, second, and third person perspectives throughout narrative involvement, and sometimes draws on autobiographical memories and background knowledge to interpret the story. Similarly, Tan suggested that narrative processing relies on two spaces into the mind, executive and entertainment. The executive space serves as an interface with the real world and provides the infrastructure to facilitate the construction of the imagined world of the narrative. The entertainment space is a theater of imagination in which the logic and relationship of the narrative are developed and maintained. Tan suggested that during narrative engagement, the executive space is always accessible, which allows an audience members to oscillate between the narrative and real worlds to compare information, check facts, and interpret the story. So, engaging with the narrative world requires audience members to not only to adopt the perspective and feel the emotions of the characters in the story, but also evoke the personal experiences and knowledge that connect to the real world to comprehend the narrative. As a result, we expect that the activation of self-related thoughts, either from past experiences or the knowledge associated with episodic autobiographical memory will facilitate the construction of more elaborate situation models, which is indicated by showing a greater diversity of character mentions and predicting the future plots more accurately. So we propose the following hypothesis. First one, audience members who have more thoughts concerning the self will think about a greater diversity of characters. And the second one, audience members who have more thoughts concerning the self will predict future plots more accurately. Participants watched TV shows to track vicarious interactions over time. They provide their thoughts while watching the programs via Twitter. At the end of the TV show, participants filled out an online questionnaire which assesses narrative engagement. Other measurements such as self-reference, diversity of character mentions, questions, plotting, plot prediction accuracy were quoted from the tweets. The result shows that all the hypotheses are all supported. So the active audience is a concept that has been important to the field of mass communication for more than half a century. Recent research on narrative processing is beginning to illuminate how complex an active audience may be. Audience members track multiple characters' motivations, goals, and actions, guess their thoughts, and infer information that is unspecified in the narrative. To our knowledge, this is one of the first empirical works to use live television broadcasting to observe vicarious interaction with multiple characters and assess its impact on media entertainment experiences. Our results suggest that the participants who monitor various media characters were more likely to ask questions and make more accurate predictions regarding future plot events. The results are consistent with the previous research on the situation models of narratives, which suggests that individuals who monitor more detailed information about the narratives and relate to more media characters may comprehend the narratives better. We also found that the participants who made more accurate predictions had higher level of narrative engagement. This finding provides additional evidence for basal and ballistic models for narrative comprehension and engagement, which proposes that better narrative comprehension is associated with higher levels of narrative engagement. The results of the current study also show that participants who applied their self-experiences and self-knowledge were more diverse in their character mentions and had better prediction accuracy. It is likely that thoughts reflecting personal life experiences and knowledge about the real world or the story world help audience members to more easily consider the perspective of various media characters with different motivations and goals and facilitate the construction of more accurate situation models. The current research attempts to connect the research in the situation models of narrative with the research that explores media experiences. The results of our study indicate that the way audience members process narrative information may have an impact on their media experiences. The sense of being engaged in the narrative world may depend on how well audience members grasp the information necessary for comprehending narrative events. Making accurate prediction about the future plot indicates that an individual's mental mapping is aligned with the flow of the narrative world. If audience members cannot construct mental representation that progress with narrative flow, they may not attain a flow-like experience when watching TV dramas. It is also possible that being able to predict the storylines accurately fulfills audience members' psychological needs of competence, as suggested by self-determination theory, which is shown to enhance engagement when watching TV dramas. Our study provides evidence of a common yet rarely explored audience activity, vicarious interaction with multiple characters. While being a narrative, audience members relate to multiple characters, a process that generates different media experiences and reactions. The results of this study provide insights into future entertainment media research. For example, the way that audience members interact with their favorite character may not afford a complete understanding of their media experiences. Rather, it is likely that following and assessing multiple characters throughout a narrative helps shape audience members' media experiences and overall narrative engagement. Thank you for your listening.